My name's Mikel Lindsaar. I've got this really funky headset on, so hopefully I don't blast you all out into the back of the room from the volume. If it gets too loud, please let me know. I tend to be a bit passionate, so I tend to talk a bit loudly, especially when I'm dealing with things that I think really should be done one way that aren't getting done that way. And then I get excited. So hopefully by the end of tonight, you'll all be able to put up your hands and say, you know what Ruby on Rails is, even though there's only a few slides. And you'll also have an idea on how we've successfully gotten Agile into the enterprise. Okay? So if you came tonight thinking you were going to the Bring Agile to Enterprise talk, you're in the right room, well done. If you're coming to some other talk, you're in the wrong room, but you should stay anyway, because we'll have a lot of fun. How's that sound? Good. So first off, I'd like a couple of people up the back. We've got like 10 chairs down the front, and it feels really empty. So I invite 10 people to volunteer and stand up and walk down the centre aisle and come and sit up the front. Come on, come down. Let's go. Oh, thank you. Even moved your seat forward. Awesome work. There are some familiar faces in the room. You get a book. You're sitting on one. It's only a 2-page book. It's a brochure of our company, and you can have that for free. Yay, free brochures. So this is our brochure. Welcome to take them home. We have some more copies around the place if you want it. Yes, thank you to Reinteractive for letting me come here and talk. Seeing as I run Reinteractive, anyway, whatever. So, who am I? First off, my name's Mikel Lindsaar. It's spelled funny, but if you look at it, it's actually spelled the right way. Because how do you say the word Mike? You say Mike. And how do you spell Mike? You say M-I-K-E. If you have an L on the end, you get Michael. So there you go. It's easy, it's well spelled, and it's proper English. So anyone that says otherwise doesn't know what they're talking about and doesn't know how to pronounce. That's my Twitter handle, @Lindsaar. I've been working in IT since about 1990. I've been around for a bit. I've been playing with Ruby on Rails since 2006. A really brief description of what Rails is. Rails allows you to build complex websites really quickly. So it handles all of the stuff that you need to do to build a website, all the common stuff like connecting to a database or getting the website transmitted over the wire or handling login forms, all this sort of stuff. It handles that really fast, so you can just focus on what your product is that you're building. So Rails was born in 2005. I started using it in 2006, and I've been using it ever since. I wrote a software library called Mail that handles email. Who here has ever gotten an email from GitHub, Pivotal Tracker, Zendesk, Airbnb, Twitter? Yep, well, my software sent that email to you. So it's been downloaded 30 million times, which is quite humbling. And it's actually part of the Rails framework. So it gives you an idea, because every download of Mail means someone has installed a version of Rails. So it gives you an idea of how popular Rails is, the fact that there's been 30 million downloads. That's a lot. So I love programming, I love startups. I have 3, they're my little babies, I look after them. And I have those 3 on top of my work at Reinteractive. So that's who I am. Reinteractive has been in business since 2010. We started in my spare room, it's grown to 23 staff. We're a little different, we're 100% remote, so we don't actually have an office. Which means, ideally, if we do something wrong, the clients can't find us to get angry at us. So we're very Fabian. We're spread out across the entire country of this great land, Australia. All of our team are full-time Australians. We don't contract. We don't offshore work. We're about to start employing some people in other countries to back up our 24/7 operations support that we do. And we build web applications for a lot of organisations. In the last 4 years, we've touched or built 90 major sites for 70 different clients. Some of them are there. Some other big names that I'd really like to put on the site, but I can't really because of various NDAs and agreements. But, you know, we've got a good broad stroke of Westfield, Qantas, the ABC Shop. We built their online store, which is probably one of the largest ones in Australia. All of that on Rails. So, I was going to ask who's here, but that was already asked, so he's ruined my slide. But I do want to ask, just a show of hands, who here works, say, in a startup or startup type activity? Okay, not so many, that's good. Large to enterprise organisations? Okay, most of the room. And the rest are like medium? Yep. Who's trying to get Agile into their organisation somehow? Okay, good. There's a fair few of you. So there's probably some barriers involved, and that's why you come along, right? Okay, good. Hopefully I can help you figure that out. So the format of tonight is quite simple, 45 minutes to 60 minutes of me talking, but that includes floor questions. So if you have any question, I really like running an interactive talk. I don't want to stand up here and lecture for the whole 45 minutes, aside from the fact that my throat will get dry, and I don't sound good with a dry throat. So please, if you have any questions, put your hand up. If I can take the question then and there, I'll just indicate and just ask the question. Otherwise, I might ask you to wait to the end and then keep the question in. But I do want it to be interactive. And you are going to talk to some of the people next to you during this talk. Fair warning, if you don't like talking to people, you should leave now. So, what are we talking about? We're talking about Agile and the enterprise. Okay? Never have two words being so far apart from each other. When people think of Agile, they think of fast, agility, well, it's in the words, so that sort of makes sense, but rapid, quick to respond, quick to change. When you think of it about enterprise, you generally don't think that. Would I be correct? Yep? Okay, good. So, I found this really good picture of what I think Agile in the enterprise looks like, and it looks like this. And some of you might have experienced that. Has anyone experienced that feeling? Yeah, a few. Good. Probably the people who put up their hands are the ones that have tried to implement Agile within an environment where they're risk adverse, change adverse, don't want to move forward. But this doesn't make sense. Why doesn't it make sense? Well, really, when you look at it, if you look at what Agile and the enterprise and everything want, they all want very similar things. All we want from the enterprise is to just use Agile to deliver a product. Would that be correct? Are you going in and trying to put Agile in the enterprise because it's cool? Are you doing it because you're bored? Are you doing it because you don't have anything else to do? Probably not. You're probably trying to put Agile in because you can see it's going to generate and produce some sort of a product at the end that's valuable for the organisation. Yeah? No? Yeah? Okay, good. So there's these three things here, right? There's enterprise, Agile, and a product. And I'm going to just start by going over what each of these mean. Who's really familiar with Agile? Careful, I might ask you what the 4 points are. Who could recite the 4 points? Okay, good. So I'm going to go through and define each major step of that. I'm going to define what I think enterprise is, what I think Agile is, and what I think a product is. And by doing that, I think you'll see ways to get Agile practices into your enterprise organisation. So first off, we're going to start with a product. Now, what is a product? Now, people think products are all sorts of things. You could think that this is a product. A service is a product. This talk could be a product. Well, in the dictionary, it's very simply defined. A product is simply the result of some process or action. And it's a thing or it's a person. So you could be a product of a university, or this brochure is a product of a design process, or a website could be the product of an agile development process, right? A product is very, very simply something that is the result of a process, okay? And when you reduce product down to that, a few things become clear, I hope, as I go through. So when you think of a product, there's two types of products that you could have. You could have a product that's nice and exchangeable and good and feels good and you're happy you received it, or you could receive a product that you feel ripped off about, right? You get the product, it's broken, or you buy this toy that's designed for your 5-year-old and in 3.5 seconds it's now broken, it's no longer a 5-year-old product, and you get upset at that. Or, I don't know, you pay tax to the government, that's a good product, everyone feels good about that product, don't they? So there's different types of products and different levels of exchange. Does that make sense? So some products are really high level of exchange, other products are really low level of exchange. So when you have a really high level of exchange product, you feel good that you bought it, it looks right, you feel happy about it, you don't have buyer's regret, yeah? And if you get the bad product, you're annoyed, you're upset, you don't want to do it anymore. So what we try and do with bringing Agile into the enterprise is make sure that the products we produce are on this good side. Does that make sense? This is really fundamental stuff, but stick with me and you'll see where I'm going. So what I just want to do is a really quick exercise, because I want the room to talk a little bit, is I want you to turn to the person next to you or behind you, depending on where you are, and I want you to give each other an example of a good product you received in your experience, and it can be on a project, or an example of a bad product or a no product that you received, where you got ripped off or you didn't get the exchange you wanted. Alright, does that make sense? And you can tell me because you're at the front and no one's next to you. There you go, right behind you. Okay, so turn to your friend, or your new friend, if you've never met them before. Tell them your name. I think if I didn't say wrap it up, you guys could have just kept talking all night. It's quite interesting. When you ask an audience to do that, the initial reaction usually is they look at you a bit suspiciously as if it's a trick. And then they start talking and instantly you can come up with these products. Who had difficulty thinking of a good one and a bad one? You had difficulty? Wow. You're one of the first people. That's fantastic. But what you'll find is that, when you talk about the good products, you feel good. Right? Yeah, this happened and that was really cool. When you talk about bad products, you're like, and you would believe it, that took like 3 hours, not 2, and like blah, 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 blah. And you feel really upset and anxious and you don't want to do it again, right? So this is a really key point with Agile, believe it or not. And I'm going to show you why, hopefully. If I don't, or you can come and talk to me at the end and you say, you said, but you didn't, so you didn't give me a product. And then I'll make sure it's okay. So really, if you're bringing Agile into an enterprise, or if you're bringing Agile into any client, right? Now, when I say the word client in this slide deck, I don't necessarily mean someone you're buying something from, getting paid to do something with. You might be in one division in an organization, and you need to provide Agile or get Agile into another division. It could be something like that, or it could be co-workers or anything, right? So just replace client with associate, co-worker, client, whatever you like. When you're doing that, your job, really, is to get your clients a product. Exchange with them something valuable, right? Give them a product and they'll give you something back in exchange, okay? And the more that you can do this, the more your clients will love you. I'll give you an example of this. Who here has a favourite store that they like shopping at? I'll probably get it. Okay, good. Or a certain brand that they like buying products from. If you buy Apple, you tend to keep buying Apple, right? Now, if you do that, for example, I have an Apple phone, and I have an Apple laptop, and I buy lots of Apple things. Why? Well, every time I've purchased something from Apple in the last 5 years, every time I've gotten a really good product. And the product is usable, I like it, I feel like I've got an exchange, even though it's way more expensive than the next thing that I could buy that's a Windows box, like mind-blowingly more expensive. Pay $1,000 for a phone instead of $100. I could go get an old Samsung that's 2 years old, probably do 9 out of 10 functions that I get on my iPhone. I could pay $50 for it. Or I could pay $1,000 to get an iPhone. Why am I buying the iPhone? It could be like I'm being brainwashed, but the truth of the matter is, I probably am. My God, I'm being brainwashed. The truth of the matter is that every time I have an experience with Apple in terms of purchasing a product, that experience is good. And even though I'm paying more, I still feel like I'm getting exchange for what I'm doing, right? You need to do this if you're bringing Agile into an organization. Every interaction that you have in this Agile manner needs to produce some sort of a product. And if you can consistently do that, it'll work out. So at Re-Interactive, and when I say exchange here, I mean anything, right? Exchange could be goodwill, it could be money, it could be a referral, it could be a job promotion, anything, right? But that really defines work, exchanging a product for something valuable in return. You'll find people who are upset, this is a side thing, but you'll find anyone who's upset in their job and doesn't like their job isn't doing this on some aspect of it. They either feel like they can't produce a product or that they're not getting enough exchange for the product they're producing. And really you can debug 99% of all organizational problems with just that statement, just by the way. So what we do at Re-Interactive, for example, is we focus on delivering valuable products to our clients. Why? Because every time we deliver that valuable product, that client is going to get more wherewithal to purchase our services again. And sometimes delivering a valuable product means telling them to not buy anything from us and go somewhere else. And we do that. We've quite often referred clients on to other companies and not taken the work because we wouldn't produce the best product for that client. And I tell you, some of our best referrals have been from clients that have never purchased anything from us. And that's just crazily counterintuitive, but it does actually happen many times. I remember one client who called up who had a job, we were doing work for them, and then we couldn't do the job because they ended up getting a co-founder who was going to do it for free and all this sort of stuff. Anyway, whatever. I said, great, good, go for it. And then we got 2 more referrals from them because they said that we were the most professional organisation they'd ever dealt with. I'm like, well, we didn't even service you. So it really works. So the product is the point of an agreement with your client or your associate. Okay? If you're producing something in Agile, you're obviously trying to go from point A to point B to get some sort of a product, right? You're looking like this. You and the client are working together to try and achieve some product. That's a really broad understanding of what Agile is, really. Or any process, you know. Agile, Scrum, Waterfall design, all these things, they're trying to do that. They're trying to go from where we are to get a product. So the product is your point of agreement. The product is where you're going to get the most agreement from your client, especially if you're trying to bring in a new methodology. That product is key. And if you find that something's falling apart in the process, so you're bringing Agile into an enterprise, you're doing Agile work in an enterprise or any organisation, and things aren't going well, the best thing that you could do is just focus back onto the product. Just bring it back to the product. Don't worry about the fact that everyone's upset that they have to do a stand-up meeting every Monday morning at 9:30 a.m. Just ignore all of that noise and just bring it back to, well, what's the product we're trying to get here? What are we actually trying to produce? And that's where you'll get your level of agreement. That's where you'll get agreement for anything. So you bring it back to the product. What are we trying to produce here? Well, we're trying to produce something that woofles toofles. Okay, good. We're trying to produce something that does something weird. Great. Now, to achieve that, we need to do a sprint planning meeting every Monday morning. Oh, okay, fine. That's how that works. What you don't want is, so this is aligned, right? Going in the same direction. You want me and my client looking at this problem over there, client's my friend, giving them a good hug. That's the product. How do we get to there, right? What you don't want is me, client opposite, client's holding a scope document like in defense. I'm holding my contract in defense, and we're like, yeah, trying to figure out this product. Because that's just going to produce confusion and upset. This is one of the reasons why the Agile Manifesto was even created. The third point is prefer collaboration over contracts, I think. So the idea being that you don't want to be fighting your client about a product that doesn't even exist yet, right? You want this. You want joint interaction. You don't want this. So what should be your focus then? And our focus is interactive, but whatever. Your focus is delivering a product that works. That's got to be your focus. If you're taking Agile into the enterprise, or you're trying to bring Agile into any organisation, your focus has to be how do we go about delivering this product? How are we going to get the product? What is it that we need to overcome to get the product? If you focus on that, a lot of conversations become easier. So we've defined product. Anyone got any questions on product? I know I've just spent 15 minutes on it, but it's really important. Okay, next. What is Agile? What is Agile? Is Agile planning poker? Is it sprint meetings? Is it stories? Is it estimates? Is it the hippie software development movement? Yeah. Probably, yeah. Is Agile any of those things? Nope. It's actually got very little to do with any of that. Agile is simply that slide. That's the Agile Manifesto. And we're going to go through each major point on that. But the thing about Agile is a bunch of people got together and they said, we're uncovering better ways of developing software by doing it and helping others do it. Through this work, we have come to value individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, responding to change over following a plan. That is, while the things on the left are important, on the right are important, we value the items on the left more. So when you read that, what you really get is that Agile is all about how do we actually get it resolved? So I'm going to go through each of these and give you some ideas about how it works. Individuals and interactions over processes and tools. You can have all the planning sessions you want. You can have 20 sprints planning meetings a day. You can do every meeting exactly per the book of how to do Agile, how to do Scrum, how to do any process. And you can do all of that, and you can end up with exactly zero product. Unless you have individuals and interactions happening. Right? If everyone comes into these meetings, to these processes, whatever the processes are, right? And this is one of the key things about Agile, and this is why you can have Agile with Scrum, and you can have Agile with other processes, because it's not about a specific way of doing things, it's more about, well, what's important is interactions and individuals. And I'll give you an example of this. We have a project that we've got running right now that's been going since November 2013. Okay, so almost a year, 10 months. When we develop a project, our usual charge-out rate's about $5,000 and a bit a week. We usually have 2 or 3 developers on it, so you can do your maths and figure out how much that project's worth. It's quite significant, okay? In that entire time, we've not once had a conversation with a client about velocity, or number of points of velocity, or anything like that, even though they've spent that much money on the project. Why? Because the individuals in that team are like this. And it's a freak of nature, I gotta say. I mean, it's pretty strange. It's very rare to get something that perfect. But the interaction is so high, and the trust is so high on that, that everyone's just doing the job. And of course we track velocity, and of course we track our feature points, and we work out, because they're indicators, and then if we notice it starts to drop, then from a management point of view, we can go, oh, what's changed here? Is there something we need to fix? But it's not a driving activity of building this process. Of course, we have our meetings every day, and that facilitates the interaction in individuals, right? But it's not the end of the process. It's not the reason we're doing the process, okay? So when you're when you're trying to put Agile into an organization, stop thinking, I have to put in Agile, and start thinking about what are the tools within what I know about Agile can achieve this product? How can we increase communication here? How can we increase the interactions? And that will get you the product, right? It's less about the process, more about the interaction, and that's what the first step is. The next one, working software over comprehensive documentation. A lot of people will do waterfall designs and scopes up front. I'll talk about that in a little bit. It's much better just to get some working software out there. Nothing speaks louder than working software if you're doing a software development project. A picture's worth 1,000 words. How long has that saying been around for? Well, it's still true. You know, a screenshot of an application is worth way more than a 40-page document describing every interaction on that page. We've worked with clients that have come to us with 70-page scope documents, and I've looked at them, and I've looked at the scope document, and I've said, do you know everything in this document? And they've gone, I actually haven't read it. All right, what? Oh, we produced that for you. I said, well, who produced it? Oh, the consultant we got. How does he know what to put in it? Oh, he asked us some questions. Okay, good. So this is canonical then? Oh yeah, no, we have to follow everything in the scope document. I'm like, okay, good, let's park that. Now, let me tell you about Agile. So yeah, at the start of the project's the point where you know the least. If you ever need to handle a client on this, just explain to them, how many times has this project been done in the world before? And they'll go, well, never, because it's brand new, that's why we're doing it. And I went, good, so how do you know what it's meant to look like? You go, oh, yeah, actually. Oh, because it's in my head. Okay. Has any users used it? Anyway, all this sort of stuff. Customer collaboration and contract negotiation. When we do a contract with a client, we only do very broad stages. Stage 1, MVP. Stage 2, first version. Stage 3, ongoing support. And that's about the definition. And we've even done contracts like that with the largest enterprise companies in Australia. And you can do it if you get that level of trust in place and you're focusing on the product. Responding to change over following a plan. Look, just last week, I've got a startup. We spent a whole week with 2 developers building a feature. So at the end of that week, we thought it would be fantastic. We looked at it, it sucked. So over the weekend, I went, that sucks, and I swallowed my pride because, you know, the client, me, told them to do it. So it must have been good, but it wasn't, it was crap. So I'd say, sorry guys, that was wrong. Let's start again. You could start it again. So we started again this week on a different avenue. But if we hadn't built that, we wouldn't have known that it was a bad idea. because we couldn't play with it, right? So I don't see that as a cost. I mean, it is a cost, but I don't see it as a waste because it now allows us to do the right thing the following week or the following month. And this is sometimes hard to get across with clients, but it's really true. So those 4 points again, you can just read them, I'm not going to go through them again. But really, what's the focus of Agile? Well, the focus of Agile is creating a product that works. That's really all they're trying to do. They're trying to get a result. It's really simple. You see, I think one of the biggest barriers for people to bring Agile into enterprise or large organizations is they try to overcomplicate it with processes. And you can probably go talk to any number of Agile or Scrum coaches, and the worst clients are the ones that have read every possible book there is, and they're trying to implement every last individual step before they do anything. Am I right? Yeah, see? So, it's not about the process, right? I mean, the process is important, sure. But driving a car is important. You need to know how to move the gear stick, you need to know how to drive and move the steering wheel, and you can know everything about a steering wheel, everything about a gear stick. You can know how when you press the accelerator it pushes a rod which goes up to the thing which opens a blah which lets more fuel in. You can know everything there is about a combustion engine. You can get on the road and the first thing you can do is you're going to buggy pop, then you're going to hit the taxi in front of you and the guy's going to come out and get angry. So knowing the process doesn't get you the result. What gets you the result is, well, what's the purpose here? What am I trying to achieve? I'm trying to achieve safe transport. How do I do that? Do I need to know how the accelerator works? No, just if you put the foot down, it works. Okay, good. What's that one do? That's the brake. That's really important. Remember that one. So then what's enterprise? Lots of employees? Yeah.
I can go back to this thing. So the purpose of Agile is creating a product that works.
That's what I think it is, yes.
But even the waterfall also creates the products.
Say again?
The waterfall also creates the products. They also work to create a product.
What will be the product?
I mean, even the focus of waterfall is to create a product.
Yes.
That works. So the Agile focuses on developing the product fast.
Yes.
And reducing the waste.
Yes.
Eliminating the waste.
Yes, that's right. And the other trick is to produce lots of small products.
Iterative testing.
Yes, that's right.
Iteratively, so that we learn fast and fail fast.
That's right.
And
Yes.
that's possible.
That's right.
I have one question on the contract negotiation.
Yep.
Usually, whenever we as a client go to vendor for picking a product, we would like to know how much is the cost
Yes.
upfront instead of just being on a dark. Okay.
I'm going to answer that on slides 48 and 50. That's exactly correct. And that's actually one of the hard parts about Agile, and I'm going to show you a slide and you'll very much appreciate it, I think.
Another question.
Is there another question? Now that we've got the microphone, we'll ask both of those questions again. No, it's fine. Okay, so the question just down here was, yeah, the client wants to know how much. How do you deal with that? And I'll ask that in a minute. So what's enterprise? Well, enterprise is this, right? There's lots of employees, lots of responsibilities, shareholders, aversion to risk, lots of approvals needed, a big organisation. Who's familiar with that? Okay, good. How easy is it to go into an organisation that's like that and implement a brand new methodology for doing projects? It's impossible, right? You just can't do it, right? Why? Well, it's because of these two things, accountability and responsibility. Anyone who approves anything in an enterprise organisation is basically putting their job on the line, saying it's going to work. And I'll explain that a little bit more. So you need to get around this, and I'm going to give you some ideas. But even though there's a lot of accountability and responsibility, what's their focus? What do they want? What do those decision makers want? A working product. Exactly. All they want is they want to receive a product that works. So if enterprise and agile processes and the vendor all want a product that works, what's the problem? Like, why is this so hard? Well, I'll tell you why it's so hard. It's because of this. No. It's because there's concerns. There's concerns in the enterprise space. When you're an enterprise client, you have to look after risk, budget, process, accountability. There's all these things that you have to tick, all these boxes to make sure that whatever it is you're producing is going to succeed. You can't just go, whee, and do it. Like, I'm lucky. I run my own organisation. If I want to implement a new process, I just say, implement the new process. And 1 day, 3 days, 5 days later, I have a new process. And it's really awesome. And that process might fail, at which point I go, damn it, implement a new process. and then implement the new process. If I was working for the NAB or something, there's no way I could do that, right? I need to get approvals. And when you think about it, your decision maker, the person you're trying to talk into doing the Agile process, what have they got to gain by doing that? Like, seriously, think about it. What does your decision maker have to gain for implementing this Agile process, or Agile?
Credit for a better product.
Right. Credit for a better product. Good job, Johnny. That's about it. And if it's a stellar success, maybe a bonus. Yeah? Which might represent another 2% on their paycheck or something. Like, really, the amount of gain that's there is not massive. It is there. Like, people want to do a good job and they want to get a good product. But what have they got to lose? What happens if that Agile project goes wrong? What happens if it goes over budget? Who's to blame? Well, the person that signed off on it. What happens if it goes over time? Well, the person that signed off on it. What happens if it gets released and it totally tanks and there's complete waste of money? Well, the person that signed off on it. Right? So these people have an awful lot to lose. And they could lose Johnny Jr.'s future schooling. They could lose their income. They could potentially, if it's a total disaster, lose their job. So when you're going in from an Agile point of view, you've got, on one hand, yeah, if this works out right, I'll get a good pat on the back. But you know, I heard that this Waterfall project sort of worked out as well, so that's at least approved, so let's just go with that. That's the default path, right? And you come and go, no, don't go Waterfall. You really don't want to go to Waterfall. I've actually got some really good stories about Waterfall. But yeah, and there's a truth in software development. The requested features will always exceed the available budget. And it's probably a truth in any project, full stop. What you want to get done will always exceed the amount of money and time and resources you have to do it in. Because we're greedy creatures. We like just a little bit more. Oh, wouldn't it be nice if that button just had a little rounded corners? Yeah, there's another day. You know, we do that. So your contact is very risk adverse, right? And rightly so. It's their job on the line, it's not yours. Well, it might be yours, but it's definitely theirs. So you get this situation. You get clients that want scope, they want predictability, they're enterprise, they want to know everything. And then you get the Agile team that's like, yeah, we're Agile, we don't have scope, just give us money and then we'll come out with a product. Just put $250,000 in the bank, we'll just keep iterating over that money and then eventually, boom, there's a product. Hey, you see that? Awesome. So yeah, there's a bit of confusion here. The enterprise guys are going, really? You want us to just sign off and give you $250,000? And you're like, hell yeah, I'll get it done, trust me. It sort of becomes a little bit like snake oil. You know, they can't see it. And it's not just them that can't see it. They have to go to their board and say, hey, yeah, Sarah's come along and she said that she's an Agile person and they can deliver this product. All we need to do is give them $250,000 and they'll handle it. And the board's going to go, right, no. Come back to us. Bring us the scope. That's what the board's going to say, right? We're going to sign off on $250,000. I, as a director, need to be able to go to my shareholders in the annual report and say, we signed off $250,000 project to produce this website. And I don't want the line item to be, Sarah said it would be cool. You know, the line item needs to be underneath after full review, consultation, and scope development, or something, right? So you might even have a stakeholder who's like, yeah, Agile for the win, we're awesome, we're Agile, we're doing a lean startup, and all this sort of stuff. But unless they can convince their boss, and their boss's boss, and their boss's boss, that you don't get to talk to, right? Because you're dealing with this person. They have to go up the line. If the spend is big enough, they have to go a long way up the line. And then you have to rely on the next person knowing enough to convince the next person, to get them to know enough, to convince the next person to stand up in front of the board on why this is a good idea. So if you've ever had problems getting Agile into the enterprise, it might have something to do with this. So this wants scope prediction. Scope documents are really interesting. If you actually want to watch a really good talk, go watch Glenn Vandenberg's Real Software Engineering. You can just Google that. These slides will be online later, probably. Or the video will be anyway, if you don't get to write it down. He talks about how scope documents are flawed and why they're flawed, and it's a fantastic talk. I just want to put that there. The thing about scope is that people think of scope as a scope document, like a Word document, right? But really, from a computer software point of view, a scope document is the software code that you write. That's the scope. The software code that you write is the only thing that fully describes what the software does, actually. Everything else is supporting documents. If you want to build a house, what do? Get a plan. Who writes the plan? An architect, right? How much do you pay for that? Lots of money. Why? Because they have to go through and work out every last line. Now, do you go to the first architect? Do you go to someone and say, I want you to write me a scope document for my house? And they write out a 40-page scope document. The bathroom shall have blah, blah, blah. And then do you take that scope document and you go give it to an architect? No. You go and sit down with the architect and you work out what you want to do. And the architect works with you. And it's an iterative process. Architects have been doing Agile for many more years than the software development community, believe it or not. And they're very good at it. And they're very good at charging extra for it. But they do. They iterate over the plans until they get a working product. And right up to the point of construction happening, they go and pay some building labourers to go and build the house, and they find out that the doorknob that they specified doesn't fit the door. What do? They embrace change. They put a new doorknob in. Does it cost them more money? Yeah, that's the way it is. Why? Well, no one's ever built this building before. It's never been done before, so no one really knows how it's going to get built. A really good architect will be able to give you some broad estimates, but rarely you will find an architect that will say, I will build you a bespoke house with the features to your specification for a fixed price. You will not find that person. Maybe you might in some locations, but generally you're not going to find that person, right? Why? Because, well, they don't know what you're going to specify. You say, yeah, but I want a bathroom. Okay, good. Well, what's in the bathroom? Well, obviously, I want a toilet and a bath and a double vanity, and I want a double shower. And obviously, I want a heated towel rack. I mean, every bathroom has that, right? No. So this is the same thing with software development. And it's the same thing with any bespoke Agile project. You're trying to build something that doesn't exist, so embrace that change. And scope documents artificially make that process a lot harder. Because what happens is scope documents are written at the start when no one knows anything about the project. They're written at the point where people know the least there is possibly to know about this project. A, because it's never been done before, and B, none of the people doing it have ever done it before. So how are they writing a scope document? Like, how are they doing that? Well, they're looking at it, and they're coming up with bright ideas, and they're just writing it down. That looks pretty good, that'd be awesome. Check that out. But what is that scope document really? It's validation. It's something that they can show their seniors and their board, I've done my homework. Even if the homework's totally wrong, and we get an F in class, it's still something tangible. And then if the project goes wrong, they say, oh, well, it didn't follow the scope document. Because, truthfully, no project will ever follow the scope document. So it's like an automatic get-out-of-jail-free card. If the whole project goes wrong, oh, well, the scope document wasn't followed. It was the vendor. It wasn't me. I'm really sorry. And you could say that about any project. I am yet to even hear about a project that was done from a scope document that was 100% successful.
That's why you have a process in place for scope changes.
That's right. Exactly. And that's the whole point. You know? And that's why the scope document itself, I'm not saying, and this is a key point because I hear what you're saying, no scope does not mean Agile. And this is another key point. It's not that you can't have a scope document, and he's hit it right on the head. It's that whatever the scope document is that you create, or whatever the scope is that you create, doesn't have to be a document, has to be flexible, has to be able to adapt to change. And that's what Agile is all about. Prefer change over plans, right? Embrace change. And that's the key. So Agile is focusing on working software. So how do we Agile an enterprise then? If we're saying, okay, we can't do this massive scope up front, but we do need some sort of scope, it sounds all like conflicting ideas and datas. Well, there's a really simple solution to this. Really simple. And it's covered in every Agile textbook that you've ever read. And it's start with a minimum viable product. Now this is really, really, really key. A minimum viable product is not the product that you wish you had with every feature in it. That's not the minimum viable product. A minimum viable product is minimum. like really minimal. A minimal viable product might just be a survey. And the survey could be user surveys or stakeholder surveys. We have one of our clients right now who's going through the process of developing a project, and they needed a scope document, and we suggested, why don't you just ask some of your clients? So they did. And the clients came back and said, actually, we want blah and blah. And that was only about 1/10 about what they were planning to do. 1/10. So they just shaved 90% of the cost of that project off by doing a survey. I mean, that's incredible. So getting some surveys done, getting out to the clients, the stakeholders, finding out what they want, that is a minimum viable product. It produces somewhat of a scope. You could then take that to someone to get more funding. Hey, we went out and asked our users. They said that they want blah. We can build blah. Let's look at it. The next thing that you could do, this is all sort of lean startup methodology, but it works just as well in Agile, is make some sort of a landing page. Make some sort of way for people to express their interest in this product. We had a company that was looking to build an application, quite large. They went ahead and put up a landing page. They sent out emails to people, tried to get people to sign up. No one signed up. No one was interested whatsoever. So they stopped the project. That's great. Means they haven't wasted that money. Sort of sucks we don't get the development out of it. But you know what? Because we mentioned that to the client and they realised that because of that they've saved all this money, do you think they'll come back to us with the next project? I hope so. Probably. I think so. That's not that bad. So once you've got some landing page, you've got some validations, you've got some surveys, the next thing you could do is you could build a wireframe or a prototype. That's the minimum viable product. Another client we had built an MVP, put the whole thing together, did the wireframing thing, went out and visited 20 clients, and all of them went, it's really nice, it's a great idea, but I don't think I'd use it. What? We did a project for one of Australia's largest companies, and we did 2 projects actually, and both of them were MVPs. Both of them were this idea of an MVP. And they were convinced that they needed this product. Absolutely convinced. They had 5 people full-time on it within their company. 5 people. And it was a small project by their standards, and $250,000 or something. By our standards, decent-sized project, something we'd really like to do. And we built an MVP for them. And we did this twice. Once they built the MVP, they didn't have to spend $250,000 on it from our end. They spent a lot less. The MVP was super successful. They got exactly the feedback they needed. They built the site, you could log in, you could play with it, you could do things, all of that. They built the whole thing, and at the end of the MVP they realised, no one wants this, we're not going to do it. That, from an Agile point of view, is super successful. And that client loves us now. Because we've shown that we can build an MVP in this much time, and we can get something that they can use to validate their idea and get it done. Imagine if they'd just gone ahead with the waterfall approach. You wouldn't know that until $250,000 spent, right? At the end, when you have the product and you launch it and no one uses it. It's interesting. Once you've done the wireframes and prototypes, you can get some user validation. Go out there and sit some users down, show them the screen and say, hey, if you do this, what can you do? All of this together is what we call our MVP Kickstart stuff. We do this as a product. That's the only gratuitous advertising I'm going to put in. So we do this as a product. But you see, once you've done this, once you've done all those steps and you've got all that data, then you can go to the board with a package of data and after your MVP, build version 1. Version 1 makes it all look pretty. But again, version 1 is only the minimum features you need to get it done. But you see what we've done? We started with nothing. We've produced a product. We've exchanged that product for a small amount of cost. Then we started again. Now we'll produce another product. Then we'll produce another product. Then we'll produce another product. That's Agile. That's iterating over, producing working software at each step. And that's how you get Agile into an enterprise. To produce version 1, we use Ruby on Rails. It's our framework. I'll skip through these. Very simple. It's just rapid application development. We do working software in weeks, not months. If you do want to learn more about Rails, I've already had a few people come up and say, I want to learn more about Rails. This is Chloe. Chloe's taking a photo of me, so she can't move. But that's Chloe, the smiling lady in the corner. We do a thing called the Install Fest, where you come along with your laptop, we install Rails, it's free. We install Rails on your laptop, and you write a blog software system and publish it in 2.5 hours. And we've put luggage handlers from the Sydney airport through this process, so anyone can do it. So what this kickstarting MVP process gives us is a product. It gives the client increased predictability. They can see where it's going, they can see how it's going to work. It's low cost, relatively to the project. It should only be 5 or 10%. Oops. It should only be 5 or 10% of the total project cost. It's low risk, because it's only 5 or 10%. Most contacts with an organisation will be able to just authorise that sort of expenditure out of their own budget. They won't have to get approval. Or maybe it's just their immediate senior they're going to need approval from, which isn't going to be a problem. It's very easy to cancel. At the end they can go, well, this didn't work. Good. Now we know it's not going to work. And they can move on. And they'll get high accolades. So they'll get more reward out of this. Remember that question about what have they got to gain, what have they got to lose? Well, if they go to the board with this, we've just done all this research, this is all the data they've got, the board's going to go, whoa, you know your job. So they're going to get that. It's good return for them. So that's how we get Agile into an enterprise. We focus on small, incremental products, each one of them returning something valuable to the client that they can use to justify getting more expenditure to produce the next step. And at any point in that process, we can cut it off. And it's okay for us to cut it off because we've been paid for that step. It's okay for the client to cut it off because they don't need to go to the next step. We don't have an overarching contract that we have to do everything, so it's low risk for everyone. It means the contracts are easier to implement. And you know what? We don't even mention the word Agile, unless they ask. They say, what process do you use? We go, oh, we're Agile. It's on our website, but we use Agile methodologies. But it's not a major, we don't have to use it as a major selling point. We just do Agile by stealth. We just give them Agile. They don't have a choice. They're going to get Agile. And it works because you're focusing on a small amount of product. You're not trying to risk the bank. So the key takeaway, focus on the product, not the methodology. Get out of product. The methodology will come. Implement the methodology, get Agile coaches if you need them, get Scrum coaches if you need them, get whatever you need to get it done, but focus on the product. If you focus on the product, you will get a product. I know that sounds really weird, but it's true. You get what you focus on, right? If you focus on methodology, what are you going to get? Methodology. Is that going to be your product? Not unless you're a Scrum coach or an Agile coach. So focus on your product. If you get the product out, everything else, nothing else will matter. Everything will be fine. You know, it doesn't matter how hard the project was if at the end of the project it works. Everyone's like, yeah, it was awesome. Everyone forgets the fact that, you know, halfway through the project they're all in a room throwing water balloons at each other in anger. You know, that didn't happen. Everyone forgets about that because everyone's on the high that it succeeded. So the key takeaway, if you want to do Agile, focus on the product. Product. How are we going to achieve this? Don't worry about the methodologies. That'll all just work out. You know, obviously know them. Obviously implement them when they're appropriate, but don't focus on them. Wonderful Agile Manifesto. If you didn't get the URL, you should go and read it. agilemanifesto.org. Just Google Agile Manifesto, you'll get it. So Agile really is just a promise of a product producing the desired results. And that's the promise, so you should deliver that. And that's it. Thank you very much.